Even men at the top of their game find themselves wanting more from life. Whether it's more meaning, unshakable confidence, a bigger impact, more money, deeper love, a hotter sex life, or a powerful legacy. Find out how good your life can be on this episode of Man Alive. Also, as I've supported men in their love and work lives for 15 years now, many men ask for the right words to say to be more successful, attractive, and desirable. But I found it's not so simple as giving scripts or lines because every man is different. So giving words or scripts would be like giving a tall, thin man a shorter, wider man's pants, or vice versa. The words have to make sense for you and your personality, and there's so much happening beneath the surface that people are responding to. If you're interested in how to become a better lover and leader in your own unique way, go to shanajamescoaching.com/quiz, or you can text ALIVE to 44144. It only takes a couple minutes and you'll start to get an idea of how you can be both more respected and desired. After you fill it out, we can schedule a time to review your quiz and talk about your specific challenges and desires. So again, go to either shanajamescoaching.com/quiz or text ALIVE to 44144. That's ALIVE to 44144. Enjoy this episode of Man Alive. Hello and welcome to this episode of Man Alive. I am excited to be here today. I'm your host, Shana James, and we are going to talk about a couple really important things. One of them being power versus strength. One of them being toxic masculinity and how to detoxify. Another being the idea of value and what actually gives you value and what can take it away. And then the misunderstandings, right? What can't give you value and what can take it away. So we have an amazing man here today, Justin B. Long. Justin, welcome and thank you for being on Man Alive.
Thank you so much for having me on the show. I'm excited.
Yeah. So you wrote a book called The Righteous Rage of a 10-Year-Old Boy. And it was a journey of your own self-discovery. And I'm thinking maybe we should start there with your personal story because it's a powerful title. And I imagine there are many, many stories there.
There are a lot. Too much to cram into one conversation.
Yes.
But, I grew up with two very dysfunctional parents, emotionally dysfunctional parents. I had an emotionally and physically abusive father. I had a mom that was a manipulator and just unable to work in the realms of reality that the rest of us are in. And she got off into extreme religiosity and all kinds of crazy stuff, trying to find her balance.
Wow.
And, it's really set me up for failure. I didn't have the emotional support. I didn't have the guidance. I didn't have the examples that I needed growing up to become a whole person. Right.
Yeah.
So, by the time I was in high school, I was drinking heavily and I was a raging alcoholic as soon as I left home and got out on my own.
Wow.
And I didn't have any idea what was wrong with me, but I knew something was wrong with me. And so I just tried to model myself after people who looked like they were making it, and I really picked some bad people that weren't good role models for me. And I tried to be the manly man and do all of those things. And it just wasn't who I was. And that it just leads to a life of dysfunction.
Yeah, I imagine, right? Without any of that guidance or any of that reflection to show you back, this is who you are. And this is who, you are lovable, you are right, you are good, right? Without any of that, you're left hanging.
Right. You don't know what's what.
Right.
I have a analogy that I like to use that, if my parents were a star system and I was a comet or something born in their star system, they didn't have any of the elements that they needed to give me in order to become my own star system, right? So I was just flying through space without any direction and missing a lot of pieces until I managed to get close enough to someone else's star system that could, teach me what I needed to know and give me those tools and teach me how to go find the things that I needed to fix myself.
Wow. And what was that shift? Like, when did you kind of have that aha and wake up to, oh, this is not the life that I want to create here?
I was 32 when I got into a recovery program and started getting sober. Yeah. And I think I was 2 years into that process when I met the man that became my mentor. And his name was Roland Mora. And he was an old, gay, one-eyed Apache Vietnam veteran yoga instructor.
Wow, that's quite a combination.
He was so intense, but he had had so many things that I wanted. He had Zen. He had the ability to control himself, and he just had presence. Like I wanted that so bad. So I started working with him, and he helped me understand so many things about myself. He broke down my barriers against therapy and against, the idea of having feelings and negotiating those feelings with intention rather than just being along for the ride, and really taught me how to check myself, and to in the heat of the moment rather than reflecting back a week later and saying, man, I really messed that up. I shouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
And that's been a very long, slow process to put all of those things together into a lifestyle. But yeah, he was the guy that started that, and the ball is still rolling.
Wow. Amazing. I know you talk a lot about value and your understanding of value and misunderstanding of value. What was that original sense of what gave you value that you then recognized, oh, that's not actually real?
I think it all had to come from my parents in the beginning. That was my source of everything. And, my dad did a great job of making me believe that he was right in all cases. Like he had all the answers. And so when I formed my idea of what gives me value or what, why I'm lacking value, I had to look at him, and he was never satisfied with anything that I brought to the table. He believed in hard work, and he always had a long list of chores for me to do. And I never got rewarded or even, a pat on the back for those chores. I got punished for my shortcomings in those, like one of my examples that I use in the book is that I had to stack firewood every day. Part of my job was to split and stack the firewood because we heated our house with a wood stove.
Yeah.
And I would fill up this big rack behind the house with wood every day. And instead of, getting a pat on the back for that, my dad would come home from work and we would go inspect it and see how many pieces of wood were sticking out of the pile. And I would get a spanking for each of those.
Oh,
so,
wow.
My understanding of that is that I'm always going to be wrong. Right.
Yeah.
But I also formed the understanding that my dad's ability to dominate me like that and to, be so sparing with his praise, like that's what gave him power and value as a human being. That,
right.
Yep. If I'm going to grow up and be a man, I have to completely dominate somebody and crush them and own them and destroy them just the way that he did me. And that was my understanding of how all of that worked, which is, obviously very skewed, but I didn't know that for a long time.
No, I mean, that's just such a powerful and painful example of how we become what we see around us, right? We model after the examples we have, and then we think we are our own person. But actually, so much of what we are is just this, we've sponged, like kind of absorbed what the people around us do. And that's what looks like. That's how you get love. That's how you are powerful. That's how you are able to make it in the world.
That's exactly right. It's all, you only know what you're taught, what you get from the environment that you grow up in. And so many of these things, the ideas are formed when we're young, and then we don't think about them for 20 years, 30 years. But, our operating system is based on those beliefs, even though we're not conscious of them.
Yeah.
So, my mom didn't believe she had the strength to be a good disciplinarian like my dad. So that was my dad's job. But she would put me in the trash can. I would have to roll the trash dumpster in from out back. She would put me in the trash can to wait on my dad to come home and spank me. And I formed beliefs about myself based on that. And as an adult, I never think about the fact that I sat in a trash can for hours at a time when I was 6 or 7 years old.
Yeah.
But the beliefs that I formed about myself at that point still drive the insecurities that make me snap and flash at somebody when a trigger thing is created, right?
Right.
So I'm still operating on that, even though I'm not conscious of it. And it's 100% environment. People that don't grow up in that kind of an environment don't have those responses to things.
Right.
But
they don't have the
until
same
you
triggers.
look at it, you just don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. So powerful. Having written the book, what's the part about it that either touches you the most or inspires you the most? Because, that's a huge undertaking to put all of that into written form for the world to see.
I think one of the biggest things for me was understanding, and this book is all about my journey through therapy and taking all of these moments apart and understanding what really happened with my adult perspective and knowledge, right? And being able to look at that back porch in that little house in Dewey, Oklahoma, back in 1983, with a little kid sitting in a trash can and understanding and believing in my heart that it's not the fault of the kid in the trash can. It's the fault of the woman sitting at the sewing machine beside the trash can.
Yeah.
That it was never me that was broken. It was my parents that were broken.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that until I was 45 years old. And it sounds ridiculous, but
no,
it's not
it doesn't
I ever
sound
consciously
ridiculous.
thought about.
Yeah.
You know? So, and it wasn't just, one or two, it was thousands of those events. So they just become a blur over the course of your childhood.
Yeah.
And understanding that I did fine. I stacked the wood. We never went cold because I didn't stack firewood, right?
Yeah.
Like I did all of the things and I succeeded at that. And the fact that I was punished for that has nothing to do with me. It has everything to do with my parents. That was my biggest takeaway. And being able, I went through trauma therapy. We did EMDR therapy. Yeah. And it really rewired the feelings and the emotions that are attached to those memories. And so being able to reflect back on myself as a child or a young adult and have a positive feeling about that rather than a negative, like it changed my whole outlook on me.
Yeah.
And that's the greatest gift in the world.
Oh, that makes me so happy to hear. Right. Because, otherwise, like you said, if we're seeing the world, experiencing the world through those memories, even as they're unconscious, right, then our reactions to other people, it's as though those people from our past are there. We get triggered. I mean, even this past weekend, I had a reaction or to my partner. And as we got into it, it really, was revealed I was reacting to my mom and all of the history, right? So if we don't see that, if we don't bring it to consciousness, we really struggle in relationships and in life.
In life in general. When I really broke it down, I only have like 3 or 4 insecurities, but they drive almost everything. And they're based on those events. But one of them is that I'm a people pleaser and I will kill myself trying to get the approval of someone that I don't even know.
Yeah.
Proving my worth constantly. It's that chip on the shoulder of always having to go above and beyond to try to prove that I'm good enough.
Yep.
And then the resentment, I have the premeditated resentment. Like, I know that you're probably going to reject me. And so I already hate you. And I come into the relationship never having made an exchange.
Right.
Already hate you because you're
stacked.
Probably going to reject me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
those things, they drive everything. They drive your relationships at work, my ability to get promoted in jobs. I was a horrible team player.
Yep.
And it was based on those insecurities that had nothing to do with my skills or my ability to do my job, had everything to do with my attitude. Yeah. And until I understood that, I couldn't get anywhere in life, whether in personal relationships, work relationships, anything.
Yeah.
It's all tied to the same beginning.
It is. And what would you say your path to overcoming? I know you did a lot of therapy. Is that what you would say helped you make that shift in understanding?
It is. Well, that's where it's at now. It didn't start there. It started with trying to get my drinking under control. And that has started a chain of events. I'm 13 years and some change into that process.
Congratulations.
But it started out with just trying to not drink and be a complete jerk to my family and ruining my ability to perform at work in the mornings and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And it led into a self-awareness journey that has just changed everything about my life. I tried to change my drinking a little bit and I ended up changing everything about my life. But self-awareness has become the cornerstone of everything that I'm about today. And the more I understand myself, the more I realize I can change my behaviors. I can change my beliefs. I can change anything about myself. So the hope that puts on the horizon is unbelievable.
Oh, yeah.
Because the sky's the limit. What do I want to do? Who do I want to be? And what is holding me back? What do I need to work on to take those shackles off?
Powerful. So when you say self-awareness, can you describe that a little more, how you frame or see self-awareness?
It starts with understanding my personality, my tendencies, and both my positives and my negatives, and being aware that those things are likely to either help me or hinder me in whatever situation I'm about to go into. Yeah. One of my things, the simplest of simples, is that I get hangry. If I don't eat on a regular basis, my sugar gets low. I can't hardly control my temper. I start snapping at people. I didn't know that for 35 years.
Wow.
And knowing that simple little thing has allowed me to, keep food with me, eat every couple of hours, and just taking care of that one simple need has changed the way that other people deal with me. Yep. And the expectations I think that other people have, depending on, like, other people knew it. They're like, oh man, it's 2:00 in the afternoon. We're just not even going to bother.
We're not even going to go near him.
Morning, Like, I didn't know. That's information I needed to have, you know? But understanding simple things like that, what are my strengths and what are my weaknesses? And if I have weaknesses that are going to be a problem in this, what can I do to mitigate that? So that was just the very foundation of understanding Justin and what I need to do to make today a good experience for me and for everybody else that I'm going to interact with. Wow. And once you start making that part of the regular routine, then you can add things onto that. And I'm still working on all kinds of insecurities and behaviors. And, we own a business, and I interact with my teammates all the time. I try to hire really good people. I try to understand what makes a good team work. Yep. And the more I learn about that, the more I learn about myself. And I realize, what I can change about me to make this function a lot better. Yeah. And just 1,000 of those little things have really improved the quality of our business, our culture. And like that has become one of my central things that I focus on, is just understanding not only me, but the more I understand me, the more I can understand other people. Yes. And realizing that when other people are triggered, it has nothing to do with me. I may have inadvertently said something that triggered them, but not taking that personally when they flash. Understanding.
That is a game changer. They haven't dealt with. Yeah, that's a huge game changer. Not taking things personally and recognizing, they're inside of their own trigger and their own past reaction. And again, I saw that this past weekend with my partner, where I went down and then he went down, and then we were both in the trigger reacting to each other. And that's really common. It's normal. It happens. And it's not like we can avoid that completely. But when we know that, we can recover and go back and say, okay, I didn't mean to say that, or that wasn't real, or now I can see from a different place.
Yeah, absolutely. I've really been focusing on that one in particular here lately, just trying to increase my awareness time so that I can realize in the heat of the moment that I'm triggered. And I got this from Daniel Goleman in his, I heard him talking about, he's the guy that wrote Emotional Intelligence. Yeah. And he was talking about, just saying out loud, my amygdala has been hijacked.
Yes.
And I've been putting that into play in the heat of the moment. As soon as I feel that feeling, I feel the cramp inside my head when something pisses me off and I'm triggered. It's instant. I know what it is.
I love it.
And instead of going with that and being owned by it, I can just say my amygdala has been hijacked.
And I will say nothing else. Right. I'm not going to say anything else until I can get back, control of the vehicle.
Right. But as soon as you even say that out loud, you become an observer of your behavior, and you're no longer a passenger, and then you have control.
Yeah.
So I'm really trying to implement that and check myself in real time so that I don't, because once you get down in the mud, it's really hard to get back out.
Yeah.
And the farther I go down that rabbit hole, the worse it is. So
Right. The farther down, the more the gravitational pull kind of sucks you in, and then it's harder to get out. Yeah.
I call it the pit of despair. Once you're in the pit of despair, it's really hard to get back out. So I'd really like to stop it on the very first step.
Yeah. Right. It's worth it to put in that attention and that, to stop yourself or pause yourself from going deeper, because it takes a lot more energy to climb out.
Much energy and time. When I look at the course of my life and how many thousands of hours I've spent being down in the pit of despair for whether it's me or somebody else. And a lot of it is me taking it personal when somebody else flashes something and believing that it's all about me. I've wasted, months of my life in cumulative time.
Yeah.
Just thinking all of that stuff was about me when it wasn't. So trying to remind myself in the heat of the moment when someone else is having that too, that their amygdala is hijacked, has nothing to do with me.
Yes.
That's a huge release.
It's a huge, huge awareness of and freedom, in that moment. Can you talk a little bit about the difference between power versus strength? You said at some point you got confused by the two, and I'd love to hear how you view those.
Absolutely. My dad was all powerful. He had 100% power over me. And that was how I understood power. Yeah. And immediately after leaving home, my escape was to go to the Army, and everybody in the Army had power over me too. So it just reinforced that belief. So I didn't understand for a long time that, I was seeking power, thinking that would make me feel better about who I am.
Yeah.
And here's the definition of power that me and my therapist found that really works for me. So the definition of power that we found is the ability to influence others. And when I look at that in a workplace or any place that I'm going to find myself in, which is generally the workplace or at home, my ability to influence others is really limited. I can direct employees in how to do their job, and I really have very little ability to influence my wife's behavior. She's a grown adult. She's not going to And I like her because she's strong, but she's not going to put up with me trying to, rule with the iron fists. So that it's a function of position, really. Like a policeman pulls me over on the side of the road, he has the power to write me a ticket if I decide to step outside of the law on speed or something, right? There are people in our societal structure that have positional power, but that's all it is. It's a mechanism to make society function. Yeah. And it doesn't give anyone value. It just makes things
There
work.
We go, right? With the value again, and that misunderstanding of, somehow having power would give you more value.
Right. And when we really examined what I'm in pursuit of, we found that it was strength rather than power. And the definition of strength that we came up with is the ability to withstand pressure. And, I don't want to compromise my core values. I don't want to compromise who I am or be forced to be something that I'm not by someone else who's exerting power over me, right? So what I'm drawn to, I'm not drawn to power, I'm drawn to strength. And I have lots of strength because I've survived my entire life with all of the things that have happened. Everybody has lots of negative events in their life. Yeah. So having the strength to not be broken by that or turned into someone who I don't want to be, that's what matters. And I have all of that. So realizing that was a game changer for me, that I don't need to keep pursuing the ability to dominate and crush someone else. A, I'm very unlikely to find that. B, if I do, it's going to be a horribly unhealthy relationship. Right. And I'm not going to get any sense of satisfaction out of it anyway. Right. Yeah. But until I consciously thought about that, that's what I was after, because I didn't know. I didn't even think about it. It was just kind of I just need to work somewhere long enough to get in charge of somebody, and then I'll feel good about me. Right. And it's as far as I ever took the idea. But, understanding that I have the strength and what gives me value and what doesn't give me value. That positional power doesn't give me any value as a human being. No, that was an understanding that I wished I'd had 50 years ago, and I'm not even 50 yet. But just because I've spent my whole life being confused about what's important, it's crazy how committed you get to an idea that you've never even really thought out.
Yes, that is amazing to recognize these ideas in our own head that seem like the cornerstone of this is who I am and this is what matters to me or this is what I value. And then realizing, that was just absorbed again, right? Back to that.
Yep.
That was absorbed. That's not actually who I am. That's not actually maybe even what I think.
Right. Well, it's like, one of my favorite references is the part to one of my insecurities, that having that premeditated resentment of somebody that they're probably going to reject me, that's a belief that I formed on the school playground because some jerk 8-year-old kid made fun of me. Right. Yeah. And I'm 45 years old and I still carry it around like that's happening today. But until you think about it, it's what drives the behavior. Yeah. But I don't want to live my life being dominated by an 8-year-old kid from 1980s.
Right. Giving priority to the 8-year-old kid. Like, hey, you get to make my choices and just, figure out what life is about for me. Right. We don't want to do that.
I don't think there's an 8-year-old kid on the planet whose judgment I would trust at this point in my life. But, until I'm conscious of what I'm doing, I'm living by my life by some 8-year-old kid's judgment.
Right. Having a 9-year-old, I'm like, nope, not even. It would be many years before I would trust that consciousness to guide my life.
Right. Yeah. Especially making decisions about who you are.
Right. I mean, it's such an incredible reframe, that sense of it can seem like power is the answer. And I talk a lot about collaborative power or, power with as opposed to power over. But I love that you took it even a step farther and talked about, strength is in a way, one of the roots of what power looks like, or power, we exhibit power, but the thing that's underneath that actually I think many of us are going for is that strength and that capacity, like you said, to not crumble under pressure, or to not
the ability to withstand pressure.
Yeah. Right. And to not fall back into those little ones in us who are based in fear and based in, trying to get it right, trying to be loved, all of those things.
Yeah.
Yeah. What were you going to say?
I had something and then it just went right out of my head. I got wrapped up in what you're saying and I was thinking about my child self. So spending a lot of time with my child self is another thing I've done in therapy. And that's been a very interesting process. Yeah. And, I didn't realize that I was so ashamed of myself as a child until I started getting into that. And I had to visualize like 8-year-old Justin sitting across the table from me. And how does that make me feel? And it took a while before I got okay with that. But it's changing that understanding of who those children inside are and what they represent. And once I managed to get that into a positive frame of reference, it's when the negative stuff comes to mind, I just have to remember that that's old information that's not relevant anymore.
Right. It's not who you actually are. It's a part of who you are, but it's not the driving or the orienting factor. So, okay, obviously all of this ties into toxic masculinity, and we've been talking about that a little bit around power and force and things like that. What else do you want men to know about detoxifying masculinity and what that's been like for you?
It has been a journey, and there's an awful lot of things I want people to know. One of the things I've learned is that I had this vision of what a manly man is, and it was based on people that were in my life, but it was based on a very narrow understanding of who they are as a person. And I rejected so many things about myself because I was under the impression that who Justin isn't good enough. And so I tried to hide that and put on layers of who I thought other people wanted me to be. Yeah. And I started that as a kid, but I continued that into adulthood. And I kept finding other people that seemed to have things going in their favor. And I would pick out what I thought it was that made them that way. And especially when I was young and single and having a hard time finding female companionship. It was like, I'm a really nice guy and I'm doing the flattery thing. I'm groveling at the ground, and girls don't seem to go for that. They go for the guy that is an asshole and just treats them bad. And so that's what I'll be. And, so I crushed all of the sensitive stuff and the complimentary side of me and just tried to become the angry biker, whatever guy. Right. Yeah. And that's not who I was, but it's who I tried to be. And then I just kept layering other things on top of that and other things on top of that. And the disparity between who I was pretending to be and who I was just kept getting bigger and bigger. But the problem was that I didn't understand that men have feelings and that it's okay to have feelings, because the only thing I ever saw from my dad was rage. Right. And so that was, there's 27 emotions, I think, something like that. And I only knew how to use one because that's the only one my dad ever used. Yeah. But once I understood that, I was comparing my insides to everybody else's outsides, and I was coming up short every time because it's not a fair measurement, that all those people are hiding feelings too, because they feel like it's not okay to show that stuff. But the truth is, we do have all those emotions, and it's okay to have feelings, and it's okay to feel feelings, and it's okay to feel the way I feel right now. Yeah. I don't have to try to drown every feeling that I have in booze or a cigarette or drugs or sex or buying something or gambling or eating or any of the other million ways that we use to try to mitigate feelings. Right. Yeah. It's okay
there's
to
something,
feel what I feel.
Yeah. There's something so powerful about just being able to sit with it and be like, oh, this doesn't feel good. And I don't have to just, right. And that's okay. I don't have to just, go to fix it or get rid of it or exile it, make it go away.
Yeah. Yeah, it's okay to feel what I'm feeling, and it's okay for me to be who I am. I think that's one of the big things that I took me a long time to come to terms with. But, if I want to be a musician and play guitars and write songs and paint paintings and write books and be who I am, that's okay. And if other people don't like it, that's also okay.
That's also okay. Right.
It doesn't, there's plenty of people in this world that I don't like, and it doesn't take anything away from them. Right. It's okay if people don't like me. The important thing is that I like me and that I am being authentic to who I am rather than trying to be who I think someone else wants me to be.
Exactly. I was just writing that. About that. Yes, right. I write that a lot, but I was just writing that about another podcast, right? The way that so often, whatever our gender, I think most of us as humans, are trying to be who we think that other ideal person will want us to be. And then we lose ourselves. And then it's the masks and the facades and the games and the trying and the proving and the defending and all those things that don't actually, like you said, right? It doesn't allow for that connection or intimacy.
Right.
Or loving yourself.
Right. But when you think about people that really seem to have it together and you admire greatly and they don't have any flaws, you don't know them very well. That's all.
right? If you think someone doesn't have many flaws, then you haven't really gotten close to that person.
Right. You need to go live with that person for a week.
Yes.
You'll realize, they're just like me. Everybody is. People are only perfect from a distance.
Yes.
We don't have to hold ourselves to that impossible expectation because we're never going to achieve that. And if we do, we're just going to feel like a failure.
Right.
The truth is, it's okay to be human. It's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to be wrong about things.
Yeah.
It's all okay.
It's all okay. And it can be scary too, right? I mean, I remember partly this weekend thinking, oh, this is why it would be so much easier to just stay single for the rest of my life because nobody will have to see this part of me, right? Nobody will have to see the part that I feel embarrassed about or ashamed of. And, but then we don't get to have the love. We don't get to have the connection, the play, the intimacy, all of those things. And it's lonely that way.
I'll tell you another secret. The flaws are what really make people interesting and make people individuals and give us something to attach to.
Yeah.
The smooth eggshell perfection is exciting for about a week, but if there's not more texture there, it's gonna be hard to hold on.
Yes, and our beloved Leonard Cohen, the cracks are where the light actually gets in, right?
That's right. That is exactly right.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for this. Is there anything else you want to leave men with from your journey and your understanding and where you're sitting now?
I would say it's important to understand who you are and why you believe what you believe. And if you don't have clear answers on your belief system, do some self-examination and be willing to change your mind.
I love that, right? To actually understand who you are and why you believe what you believe rather than just taking it because it's in your head.
Right.
And to do that self-examination, to do that, to become self-aware, like you were talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't want to be my dad. I don't have to be my dad. I can be me. Yeah. And me is very different from my dad. And that's okay. It's good.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much for being here. And where can people and men find your book and find you?
You can find everything there is to know about me at jboydlong.com. That's BOYD, jboydlong.com. And I've got all my books are on there, and I've got a lot of blog posts on self-awareness and self-development, and you can contact me through there and all my social media links and everything. And thank you very much for having me on the show. This has been great.
Good. Thank you. I'm so glad you joined us for today's episode of Man Alive. I hope you enjoyed our conversation and it gave you something to consider and explore in your life. If you like what you heard, I'd be so grateful for you to subscribe and write a quick review that helps men like you find us. And again, head over to shanajamescoaching.com/quiz or text the word ALIVE, ALIVE, to 44144 to get a sense of how you can become a better lover and leader. You'll start to see how you can be both more respected and desired in your unique and genuine way. If you don't feel as confident or as excited about life or love as you'd like to be, this quiz is a really great starting point and will guide you toward a more passionate love life and a more inspiring and successful career. So again, text ALIVE, ALIVE, to 44144 or head over to shanajamescoaching.com/quiz. Join us each week for a new episode of Man Alive.